Welcome to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show where we discuss all things political, bringing you the top stories locally, nationally, and from around the world. I'm Reuben Abati, and This Day Live begins now. I'm Reuben Abati, your host for This Day Live, the Sunday talk show. I'd like to welcome our special guest for today. Joining us is the Director General, Bola Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, Professor Bola Akinterinwa. And of course, our resident guest, Deputy Editor at This Day on Sunday, Wale Olaleye, is here today.
Good evening, Doctor.
And later on in the show, we'll be joined by our favorite budget specialist and CEO of Economic Associates, Ayo Teriba. All that and more. Stay tuned. Welcome to all of you, and thank you for joining us. We have quite a bit to talk about today, so let's get right into it with the top stories of the week. Wale, you usually give us the rundown. What's been happening in the past week?
Well, good evening, Doctor. You're welcome again.
Thank you.
It's been an interesting week. In fact, I have quite a lot of stories here on my list, and then I would think that the high point of last week was the defection, or no, rather the resignation of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar to, leaving the APC. He's yet to announce where he's going, but there's speculations about where he would be eventually. And I think for once I would see somebody properly handling the matter of, defection ultimately, because he started with resignation and then before eventually defecting to another party. And of course,
yeah, but the party says they've not received this letter of resignation.
They'll get it, I'm sure. also, there was a kind of trade between the PDP and the APC. Although in Lagos here, Senator Banekoro, one of the most experienced politicians in Lagos State, former local government chairman, former commissioner, former senator, former high commissioner, former minister twice, former board chairman, and he had, he shared these things between the APC and the PDP, and now he's back in the APC, where he thinks he naturally belongs.
Well, with all those positions you listed, which he enjoyed it under the AD or the PDP.
Both of them, he shared it.
The senator says he was not fulfilled in the PDP.
but I think they enjoyed the PDP more, actually.
Well, he says he's leaving because he wasn't fulfilled.
Maybe he wanted more. Of course, in the week, a Lagos lawyer, Mr. Femi Falana, and the AGF Malami had to slug it out a bit over some property. Also, INEC expressed some kind of concern over relevant electoral amendments as 2019 now approaches. Southern senators also at a retreat in Calabar, over the weekend, asked President Buhari to commence the implementation of the 2014 Confab report. And I think the report, like the restructuring debate, is beginning, to gain a lot of steam. Disquiet in the civil service over non-deployment of PAMTEX. I think about 6 states, Imo, Rivers, Plateau, Kaduna, Kano, and Oyo, are yet to be placed or assigned portfolios. There is, I spoke to the doctor earlier. I think we need to look at the state of education really critically. It's appalling, and something that should be of concern to every one of us here. So the state of education, taking the cue from the recent
competency test in Kaduna State.
And then the Senate has begun the probe of alleged sales of seized properties by the EFCC, but the EFCC said there was no such thing. We'll find out much later. Senate rejected INEC nominee for Zamfara, confirmed those of Lagos, Kebbi. Buhari appointed 30-member National Minimum Wage Committee. States boycotted FAC meeting, queried figures. FG to introduce toll gates at old locations, said the Minister of Power and Works and Housing. Tinubu in the week said APC has not endorsed anyone for 2019 presidential poll. That's interesting. You know, the automatic ticket for the president is gradually gaining momentum, and I think in a way they are subtly passing some kind of subliminal message to the president that is not going to be some kind of a walkover for him this time.
Well, but you know, at the same time, the APC governors supposedly endorsed the president for 2019.
No, they just,
and there are groups that have also emerged.
I think the APC governor just confirmed or commended his performance. As far as the ticket is concerned, it's open.
Well,
then in the week we lost former Vice President Dr. Alex Okwema at 85.
God bless his soul.
God bless his soul.
May he rest in peace.
Senate had met with the AGF thrice in the week over minor. It appears some unending matter. Senate ordered reinstatement of dismissed Colonel Chidi Kalu. I think they should extend that to all the 38 officers who were illegally dismissed. You know, Lagos began evacuation of articulated vehicles on Apapa Expressway.
Well, those vehicles are still there.
Very much
and
there.
It
was hellish for
almost
me leaving
inaccessible.
office, early this morning. It's not been easy, and I'm praying that the Lagos government is going to find a way around this Apapa mess by these trailers. Army ordered personnel to learn 3 major Nigerian languages. That would be interesting.
Yeah, the deadline is 2019, right?
It's impossible. EFCC, DSS in standoff over attempt to arrest ex-DSS DG Ekpeyong. But I think there's a need for these people to have a better working relationship.
Well, the Senate already took a position and said that the security agencies in Nigeria are in disarray because of this interagency rivalry.
Yeah, it's horrible.
It looks really untidy.
Former President Goodluck Jonathan turned 60 in the week. Congratulations to him. I think that man has been able to stay above board regardless of the distractions since he left office. Ex-PDP, this is a sad one, PDP national chairman's son stabbed to death by his second wife.
We keep having many cases of domestic violence.
This is sad,
in Nigeria.
A very sad one, actually.
It's on the increase.
Yes, a very sad one. And on the international scene, we're going to likely look at the post-Mugabe era in Zimbabwe. There was some killing in Egypt, which claimed close to
200 lives.
Yeah, 230-something lives. And of course, earlier today, there was an explosion in China which killed 2 people. So with this,
let's start with Zimbabwe,
okay,
because that's one of the topics we looked at on this program last week. Now it's official that after 37 years of rule, a whirlwind of poverty and a continued decline in currency, Robert Mugabe has finally stepped down, citing concern for the welfare of the people of Zimbabwe. And just like that, Zimbabwe has a new leader. Known as the crocodile, Emerson Mnangagwa has taken over power in Zimbabwe. Sworn in on Friday during a colorful ceremony before tens of thousands of people in Harare's main stadium, the 75-year-old stalwart of the ruling ZANU-PF party promised a new era for his country and said that he will govern for all Zimbabweans. Well, obviously. Robert Mugabe and his wife will receive a golden handshake worth many millions of dollars as part of a deal negotiated before the resignation of the aging autocrat last week. The exact sums to be paid to the former president and his wife, Grace, are still unclear, though one senior ruling party official with direct knowledge of the agreement said the total would not be less than $10 million. The first couple, the former first couple, will be able to remain in their sprawling mansion known as the Blue Roof in Harare, as the 93-year-old's $150,000 salary will also be paid until his death, and the state will pay for his and his wife's medical care, domestic staff, security, and foreign travel. Mugabe's 37-year rule has left Zimbabwe with a worthless currency, massive debts, an impoverished population, and an estimated unemployment rate of more than 80%. Roads are rotted, many rural communities have no electricity, education is basic, and healthcare almost non-existent, not to mention the life expectancy of 60 years, which is one of the lowest in the world. Why is it that the government will continue to take care of a man who essentially put the entire country in its worst state? What's your take? Should Mugabe continue to receive support from a system that he destroyed, more or less? And what do you feel about Mnangagwa, the new man? Do you think he will keep his promise of a new era for Zimbabwe? Prof.
Yes, that's an interesting
Slant.
Yes, it's a good report in itself.
Yeah.
You see, should he be paid all the amount so stated? The principle of sanctity of agreements, the principle of pacta sunt servanda, has it that, look, when you consciously, voluntarily agree after negotiation, you are pretty bound to keep to the spirit and implement it. But the question is, should such payments have been agreed to? That's the issue. Now, when you look at the environmental conditionings of the negotiation, you need to make the president happy. Please, if you take a closer look at the statement of Mnangagwa, the new president, he described Robert Mugabe as the father of the nation, as his mentor, as his leader, and most significantly, as a comrade in arms. Second point to consider is the fact that the military had it that it was not a coup. All right? That in itself is controversial. But for them, it is not a coup from the perspective that the military never intended to take over power and rule. The only thing is that it succeeded in forcing him out.
Wow.
And that one contradicts the principle of the African Union itself, that under no circumstance would any forceful change of government be condoned. So when you look at all these factors, you need to have a balancing factor, which is that, all right, look, this man was duly elected. His tenure comes to an end next year by September, and they now want another successor to complete his term. This new president wasn't elected. He's only continuing. In fact, he was appointed.
You call him temporary
Precisely.
president.
Well, I mean, you started about, the payment for life for Robert Mugabe. Isn't it the convention, in virtually all African
Yes,
countries?
I'm coming to that.
People who leave public office at a certain level, they're taken care of for the rest of their lives, particularly presidents.
Yes,
But here in Nigeria, you find a ridiculous situation whereby even members of House of Assembly, draw salary at public expense for the rest of their lives, So I don't think there should be any problem about that. Should there be?
Where I agree with you to an extent that, look, the payment seems unreasonable, is that his salary, normal salary, as an outgone president, right, will still be paid. Will be earning salary until
He dies.
And it will be provided with security, medical
security,
care.
all those things.
Yeah.
Now the issue of $10 million US, not Zimbabwean dollars, US dollars, and with the situational reality in the country, all right, with the poor economic situation, I think that...
I think that's a payoff for conceding to resign and then leave. That's a payoff.
Yes, that's what I'm saying is that, look, he's a nationalist. He doesn't need any...
At the point he had become a bull in the China shop and then they just needed to get
Well, Prof is saying that severance package is too much.
Yeah, it's too much.
Really.
But in any case, what will happen after Mugabe? What do you imagine will be the new situation? Mnangagwa has already promised that there will be elections, the elections will go on as scheduled, and the international community is a bit cautious about the situation in Zimbabwe. There are people who insist that no change has taken place.
Absolutely.
Because indeed, if you look at Mnangagwa's profile, his profile is just as notorious as that of the man that is taking over.
Even if not more notorious as Mugabe's. I think I want to share that sentiment too. I do not really think much has changed. apart from faces which we saw, displacing each other. And the fact that Mnangagwa was, I would think, was also instrumental to the coup, I would rather he did not benefit from it, honestly. And truly, if Zimbabwe is determined to move forward, I would rather an entirely new set of leadership, steering the affairs of the state. But good enough, I want to believe it's not going to stay beyond September when another election would take place. But if he's going to be part of that election, then Zimbabwe is in trouble because these guys are institutions already. And then they know they are the country. They can actually say we are Zimbabwe, in some sense. And to think that kind of attitude or leadership will remain in Zimbabwe will also mean that the same culture is being sustained.
Let's put the argument further at two levels. At the level of Africa and Zimbabwe, the appointment of the former vice president as president is neither a victory for Zimbabwe nor for Africa. It is more of a victory to Europe, particularly the British. You see,
How?
I like that question. How? Right from the Lancaster Conference of 1980, Robert Mugabe and Britain have always been at loggerheads. Always at loggerheads. For a simple reason. The reason was that the British negotiated with Robert Mugabe to ensure that there is peace for the white settlers, the white farmers. We raised the issue of the policy of Shimurenga. The policy of Shimurenga is the land policy, which divided the land in Zimbabwe into 5 categories. The first 3 are the best, all right, A, B, C. And they are all owned by white farmers. D, E, they are the poorest. There's nothing. You can do intensive farming on it, you wouldn't get anything. So the British promised to pay 75 million pounds sterling.
Which they refused to pay.
They only paid the first 1 million. Now that angered Robert Mugabe. And on that basis, he now decided to take forcefully the land, yes, the farms, and give to black Zimbabweans.
But they shared it amongst themselves at the top echelon.
Whatever is the case, they are still black Zimbabweans.
True.
Somebody must take over. So, since that time, the British have been trying tooth and they have made different efforts in the international community to get rid of Robert Mugabe. But
that may sound like a conspiracy theory. Because if you look at it, if you blame, I'm always reluctant to blame the outsider. Okay. Robert Mugabe took over, yes, there's this issue over land, but he denied his people good governance. He denied his people responsible leadership. And we're hoping that at some point, Zimbabwe will get to that level where there will be responsible, committed leadership, and that will only perhaps happen when the ZANU-PF is out of power.
Your question was how? And I'm trying to explain the how. Yes. That, at the end of the day, now the British are happy that at least enemy number 1, Robert Mugabe.
But they've not shown that happiness publicly, have they?
They don't have to do so. That
diplomatic to do that. Yeah.
Anyway, we just hope that eventually, the people of Zimbabwe will get the true change that they deserve. But
there will not be any change.
On a funny note, on a lighter note, I've read reports saying, look, Grace Mugabe was considered an issue to Robert Mugabe. And now, Emerson Mnangagwa also has a 32-year-old young kid. But hopefully, Mnangagwa will learn from the example of Robert Mugabe and ensure that we don't have another Gucci Grace taking over from
Some people said that Mugabe thought that leadership could be transmitted sexually. That's what's happening.
Anyway, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has resigned, as you know, from the All Progressives Congress, APC. He gave reasons including arbitrariness and unconstitutionality that led to the factionalization of the party, as well as the institution of a regime of draconian clampdown on all forms of democracy within the party and the government it produced. He went on to state that the party has failed and continues to fail the Nigerian people, especially young people, highlighting the fact that the federal cabinet doesn't even have one single youth, and mentioning that a party that does not take the youth into account is a dying party, and that the future, as we all know, belongs to young people. Atiku has yet to say which party he intends to join, stating he's pondering on his political future. However, the rumors are that Atiku is making a power move in anticipation of a 2019 presidential run. Deputy National Chairman of People's Democratic Party, PDP, Chief Olabode George, has described former Vice President Atiku Abubakar's resignation as positive, just as he noted that Atiku was coming back home to PDP where he belonged. Also, a former governorship aspirant in Lagos State, Dr. Adegbola Dominic, in his reaction, described Atiku's resignation from APC as a plus for PDP, particularly if he decides to join the party to contest the 2019 presidential poll on the party platform. We're seeing a lot of movements, different people party hopping, and Atiku's just happens to be the most dramatic move of the week. But what does this really mean in real terms? He seems determined to run for president, but does he even stand a chance? And then, of course, with Senator Musiliu Obanikoro also defecting from the PDP's want to truly question the genuineness of our politicians today. All of these movements back and forth between parties seems that politicians are just playing games, motivated by ulterior motives and ambition, with no commitment to any party, ideology, or the people. What do you think?
For starters, I would say that as a political reporter, I would think Atiku actually left APC the day Buhari clinched the presidential ticket of the party. I think he had waited this long to see if there would be some kind of genuine approachment, by way of addressing some of the grievances of other party leaders and all that. But the leadership is a defective one, there's no doubt. It's not been able to put together its board of trustees. It couldn't hold neck for so long.
That's the APC
no
about.
party caucuses and all that. So that Atiku would go eventually was tried for some of us, and then that he hasn't said where it was going is also political. We know he will be going to PDP, and in fact, as ThisDayLive reported on Saturday, he should be declaring on December 6th so that he will make December 9 National Convention of the party.
But you see, a lot of people are concerned that Nigerian politicians and political parties don't seem to stand for anything.
No, it's a question of ideas. It's ideology. It's a problem. It's a question of ideology.
They just move from one party to the other.
It's a question of ideology. That's not ideology. In fact, in terms of ideology, PDP is far better. APC was just some kind of movement, people of different, creed, demographic and all that, brought together just to grab power. And then when they grabbed power, they couldn't find what to do with it, with some kind of precision, with a view to actually moving the nation forward. And that is why we have what we have today. For 2 years, it would take the president over 6 or 7 months to put together a team. For a party, for an office, you had, sought for almost 3-4 times.
What are we dealing with? Moral turpitude on the part of the politicians, or the failure of the political party system in Nigeria?
I will subscribe to the later part of your submission, which is the failure, of the system. The Atiku issue raises a more critical point. It was reported in the press that, look, if Atiku wants to come back to PDP and be his flag bearer, that he will need, a priori, to meet with Olusegun Obasanjo first and beg him and apologize to him. Now, I ask myself, Olusegun Obasanjo himself had withdrawn from the PDP.
God bless you.
And he says he's no longer a partisan politician.
He publicly tore his card.
Now, why would a senior PDP stakeholder say he will need to go and see President?
Well, you know, there's a godfather factor in Nigerian politics.
What Bob D will call the owners of Nigeria.
The godfather, you know,
but when the
godfathers decide.
When the godfather says he's no longer
in the equation, no longer in the equation, so
precisely.
No, but you know the reality of Nigerian politics. There is a lot of clientelism.
But Prof, like it or not, Obasanjo remains a factor. I mean, that's one thing we must, and it doesn't have to be whether APC or PDP. In Nigeria, when it comes to Nigeria, the politics and nation building, Obasanjo would always remain.
I cannot agree more with you. Okay. Olusegun Obasanjo is a household name for everything. And when he opens his mouth to talk, you know, regardless of how he puts it, you will see some Solomonic wisdom in
Absolutely.
Just 2 days ago when I read to say, look, only careless people can die of all these diseases. He said he had been diabetic for over 30 years. And at the end of the day, he was managing it very well. So if people are dying carelessly, etc., I say, look, people need to manage the extent of their carelessness. So I agree with you. But the point being made here is that Atiku is expected to be the flag bearer, all right, for PDP from various reports. But some stakeholders are saying, well, we are not against that, but we need to go and settle.
Well, but look at it. Look at Obanikoro also, you know, who has moved from the PDP to the APC. There's also a godfather element in his statements, in his declarations, and he says he has begged for forgiveness. He has asked, you know, the political leader of the APC in the Southwest, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, to forgive him. So you find this pattern all over Nigeria, whereby, you know, politics, the political process, is midwifed by a number of godfathers. And that raises a number of questions.
Again, Obanikoro too left the PDP the day he lost that governorship ticket to Jimmy Agbaje. Because it has got to a point.
No, but it was compensated. And he was brought back into the government.
But you know, he was
given another ministerial appointment.
He's had this running battle with Chief Bode George, and it seemed whatever they had.
That's another godfather, right?
Yes, whatever they had appeared irreconcilable. So I think he just at some point thought, let me leave this party for him. And I think, if you ask me, it's because.
But you are a political reporter. It's not just Atiku has moved away from APC. Or Obanikoro moving away from PDP. Yeah. There have been also many other cases of defection.
Of course.
Particularly at the state level.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, are we facing the prospect of a likely one-party state? Because everybody seems to be moving into the ruling party.
No. Some are also leaving the ruling party. In fact, a lot more will leave the ruling party as we approach 2019. So we are still going to manage, you know, predominantly these two major parties as we.
Yeah, but some people are saying the movement into the ruling party is because some people are seeking protection from.
That is very correct. There's no debating
from
that.
The anti-corruption agencies.
Absolutely, but
I think that by 2019. Defection will no longer be a major issue, especially
2018.
By 2019 even. By the time
2019 is the election.
It's the election, so by next year.
Yeah, but you see, the National Assembly is already considering legalizing, you know, this defection. So it's no longer going to be a critical issue. I think it's an issue that has been raised at that level.
Well, let's hope that at the end of the day, you know, we will have less of clientelism, godfatherism, and that Nigerian democracy will truly belong to the people.
That's just a wish, Doctor.
The sovereignty of the state.
That's a wish.
Resides. Well, but it's the ideal. We should all
ideal.
Well, it's time now for a short break here on ThisDayLive, the Sunday talk show. But do stay tuned. When we return, we'll have the latest on the state of education here in Nigeria, as well as updates from the Senate in terms of demands for the implementation of the 2014 Confab report. Don't go away.